Welcome to the BrownBerry Chronicles podcast. This is probably a very strange setup. I'm in my car. That's pretty obvious. But those of you who've been here before at the BrownBerry Chronicles know that I just record whenever I can. And right now I happen to be in the car waiting for my girls to finish off trivia night at our local library. So I made myself a little sunshade here and just wanted to welcome you to this podcast. This is a podcast about making and the joy that making brings to my life. I'm actually going to be knitting while I wait for the girls to finish up. And I just thought I'd introduce the podcast and let you know that I put together some segments of things that have been happening over the last couple of weeks. And I hope that you enjoy them. As always, you're welcome here. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. I hope that you're making time to create. I hope that you are finding joy in that time. And otherwise, enjoy the podcast. Thanks for being here. Hi, Adachi.
Hi.
What are we doing today?
I'm going to learn the Afterthought heel for this mismatched pair of socks.
Who knit these beautiful socks?
I did.
Did you say they're mismatched?
They're a little bit mismatched only because this one's a little wider.
Oh, so your gauge is a bit looser on one than the other?
Yes, this is the first one I did. It was a little bit looser.
Did you try them on yet?
I didn't try on the second one, but the first one I know that one fits.
How did you like the process of knitting those tubes?
It's very relaxing because you end up doing the same thing over and over with these ones.
Yeah.
Because you do the heel afterward.
And we call those vanilla socks because they are stockinette, so you knit every round.
Yes. So now I'm going to compare.
That's a Cascade Heritage print yarn.
It's self-striping.
So it does all the color work.
They're pretty similar.
Let's see. I'll make the camera so we can see.
Fit without the heel is pretty similar.
Good. They look good. Do you like that length so far?
Yes, I think they're going to be like about here when we put it in. Or.
So what do you understand about an afterthought heel at this point?
Well, I think what you have to do is find the point in your sock where your heel would normally be, and then you cut out some stitches to make an opening there, and you pick back up the stitches and knit it out this way, and you close it up.
That's it. We're going to do it right now. So we're using our Knitter's Notions jar, which has all of these really great tools in it, including some nice sharp scissors, which we'll need, and our darning needle. We'll need that at some point as well for doing Kitchener stitch. We also need our measuring tape to make sure we put the heel in at the right point on the sock. Other than that, we just need our socks, and we also need the needles that were used to knit the socks.
Oh.
We've got that. Very cool. All right, we're ready. We'll see. So we want the length of your foot, which we know to be about 10 inches and a little bit.
Yeah.
10 1/4. And we want to go 2 inches less than that to allow for the insert of the heel. And it's a vanilla sock, so we could put the heel on either side. It doesn't really matter. But that measurement is taken from the toe up. So we want to measure to about 8 inches. And we can do 8 to 8 1/4 inches so that it's a good snug fit on the heel. When we insert the heel and it makes space, we don't want the rest of the foot to be sagging or too loose. We still want it to be a good grab. So that's about 8 inches. And from our knitter's tool tin, we can also use a stitch marker to mark that 8-inch point. And these are going to be shorty socks. So what I'm doing is I'm marking an actual row, and with striped socks, this is a process that's even a little bit easier because I can see that I'm, for example, picking up where the blue stitch is. If I double check my measurement, that's just over 8 inches, right? So that blue stitch represents the row that we're going to cut. All right, you see there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so all the stitches in that line, we're going to snip them out. But first, we want to protect the row above that stitch and the row below that stitch. And the way we protect them, that's just my term for it, is that we're going to pick up all of the stitches in the row above onto this needle, and we're going to pick up all of the stitches in the row below onto this needle before we do any cutting. Make sense?
Yes.
So we've marked our spot on the sock with a removable stitch marker, and now we're going to insert the needle into the row above and the row below. So I follow the purl 2 stitches. You can move this around. You've already got your stitch marked. So if I say this is, I know that this is somewhere near the half or the beginning of the round because it's the side edge, and we did magic loop. So I just look at purl 2, knit 2. That's the knit row right there. I'm just following that down. And I'm following it down. No, I lost it. I gotta go back. The needle just kind of helps me point to the stitches. You see what I'm doing, honey?
Yeah.
All right, so in this row, 1 over is the last purl 2. This is where the row or the round begins.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to put another marker right about at that point, just so that I can pick up exactly half of the stitches onto the needle. So it takes a little fiddling at first to get it. So this is our first knit 2. I'm manipulating the sock so that I can follow that row of stitches from that knit 2. I just use my needle. I'm looking at the V's. That's really what I pay attention to. You see?
Mm-hmm.
The middle of the V's, that's what I pay attention to. And I come down till about where I think it is. Just use my needle for a second to mark that. And then I go from here and see, am I in that same line where that measurement is? It doesn't have to be exact. If you're 1 row off or so, it's not going to make a difference. But if I go across, let's use the other end of my needle to go across. If I go across from here, looking at the stitches that are in this row, that V, V, V.
So
that's the one. It's right here. It was 1. That actually is the row
that we're taking
that we're going to snip. But now I know the row above the Afterthought heel opening. So I'm going to pick up stitches. It doesn't really matter which leg you pick up, because if the stitches end up twisted on the needle, you can always knit into the back loop. But I'm going to pick up stitches on the right side of each V. Do you see that V?
Yeah, right.
I'll pick up its right leg. Then I go over to the next V and I pick up its right leg. And I keep doing that all the way across. And all I'm really paying attention to is that I'm staying in the same line of stitches. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
As you're going along, you're going to get closer and closer to the marker. And then you'll know for sure if you've stayed in the correct row, because you should be picking up stitches 1 row above that marker. So far, so good.
Wait.
And if you feel like you've picked up the wrong leg, just back the needle out and go again.
Or middle finger. I don't know. Probably.
So once you got to the stitch marker, what did you find out? Were you on the right row?
I wasn't at first, but then we fixed it.
So that you're one above, and you're going to try to get about halfway across. What I usually do when I get to this point is I push my needle out so that the stitches are really on there, and I count them.
Okay.
Because then I'll know if I'm close to having half of the stitches on the needle.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16.
So you're going to have 32 stitches on that needle, and that gives you half the total number of stitches.
Okay, now let's count it again.
So you're pulling that end of the needle out until the other needle end is in what we call the ready position. You don't want to pull it through, you just want to have the other needle end available. Okay, that's good. And then you want to use the same needle end you just used, and you want to go one row down from the marked row that's going to be snipped. So you have the last stitch that you just went through, and now
this is the one right here.
There'll be a row below that. We're going to consider that sort of the middle row, and you want to go one below that because we want to pick up the stitches in the row below that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And you're still looking for those V's, and you're still trying to pick up one leg of each stitch. All right, Adachi.
Password.
All right, how was it?
This part was fairly easy once I got the hang of staying in the same line. But
Yeah,
first
looks like
step
it's
is
around.
complete.
So
Second step.
we'll look a little bit closer and see that you have your needle, the cable of your needle. You've been able to string that through a row above and a row below the marked stitch. Are you ready to cut?
Yes.
Snip, snip, snip.
Snip, snip.
All right, get your scissors.
These are cool.
And what we're gonna do is we're gonna snip one leg of the stitch that's marked, and we want to be very careful not to cut through. Yeah, we want to be very careful not to cut through both layers of the sock. So I'm going to show you how to do that. What you want to do is take your scissors, and you see the stitch that's marked?
Yes.
Kind of pull him up a bit and cut one of his legs. That's all you need to do. That will open up everything else we need. We can take that marker out now. Now, the darning needle comes in handy again because we can use it to pick out the stitch all along the row. Let me show you an example, and then I'll let you pick out the rest. This row is the one that's been cut. So we can go in one direction and use the darning needle to pick out the stitch at a time. And you're going to do that going towards one side of the sock. So we're basically releasing that stitch to create an opening. And you're going to do that all the way out to one side of the sock, and then you're going to do it to the other side. So all I was doing is in that stitch that we cut, it's kind of in the middle here, I find one of its legs and I pull like that.
Okay.
It's almost like undoing a shoelace or something. You just go step at a time.
Okay.
And just take your time since you're just getting used to it. And you'll know if you're pulling on the wrong leg because it won't come loose. So you want to go close to where you were. Good, you got it. You just keep following that line. There you go. Awesome sauce.
Which way is on?
Okay, there you go.
Oh, I'm trying
You're
to find
pulling
the
each
second one.
Yeah, you're pulling basically each leg of a stitch at a time. Now if you pause for a second, can you see how it's starting to create an opening?
Yes, right.
There's a hole
you can
there.
go through.
Yep. Good job. And you're going to do that same thing, just going in the other direction to get the rest of that row. Now, here's a trick. Before you go all the way to the end, there's a way to avoid having any holes at the corner of your sock, basically at the heel joint.
And I learned this from Rachel of TreeHouseKnits. She's got an excellent YouTube video tutorial on creating this afterthought heel. And she said that she saw this on a video and it works great. You just keep undoing the stitch almost to the end, but you leave 2 stitches, at least 2 stitches intact.
So
you
that'll be about like here.
Right. And if you don't pull those loose, when we get ready to knit the heel in the round, that area is still solid, it's still whole, and we won't have any gaps at that point. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, here at the BrownBerry Chronicles, we record the good and the bad. We have somehow managed to grab a row that was not part of what we wanted to snip. So we're trying to do some surgery here to recover the stitches.
The theory is that we could have marked the leg from one row and with a leg from another row, so when we snipped it, it took out 2 rows instead of just the one.
Yeah, so we've got all kinds of stitch holding devices here. We'll be back.
So Adachi has successfully gotten all of the stitches that she needs on the cables of her sock knitting needle. And she's now got the middle stitch that she's ready to cut.
Yes.
She's secured that, one leg of it. She's turning it over because the last time I mistakenly cut more than I should have, which means we had some more ends to weave in.
Just making sure. Okay, yeah. I think this is good. Snip.
Was that scary?
Yeah, a little bit.
All right, now you need the darning needle, which is right behind your right arm.
Right here.
And do you remember how we were pulling out
You're
legs in one direction?
Unzipping.
Yeah, it is like unzipping, or when you're taking a lace out.
Yeah.
So there's one piece. And soon after doing this step last time, we realized that something was a little wonky.
I'm trying to get... There it is.
But this time around, it looks like she's done it brilliantly. So you will unzip in one direction for that stitch all the way across to make an opening, and then you'll unzip in the other direction. Now let's show you what the finished product looks like after you actually knit in the Afterthought heel. So here is the Afterthought heel that Adachi knit. We were able to recover from our cutting mishap and still get stitches on the needles to be able to knit in a heel. What we like about this heel is that the shaping is done very much like the toe of the sock. So you're doing paired decreases on either side, and we chose to do alternating decrease rows and plain rows to make a gradual decrease. We did that on the heel. And Adachi's fit works well when she goes from 32 stitches on each needle down to 12 stitches on each needle. And it fits her great. If we have some photos, I'll insert them here. Adachi's finished socks with an Afterthought heel. Self-striping sock yarn. I think this is Cascade Heritage. And she learned a new technique, putting in Afterthought heels, and she made herself some shorty socks. I think they look great. So, Adachi, how was your first Afterthought heel sock experience?
The first time was... it was a little bit of a learning curve because we made a little bit of a mistake, but then we fixed it, and I think the second one went much better.
Yeah, when we cut into the space for the heel on the first one, I think Mommy snipped a stitch in the wrong spot. But we recovered it.
Yeah.
Would you knit like this again for socks?
I think I would, because I like how you can just keep going with your tube. It's very like meditative to just go around, and then you can think about this after.
Very cool. You did a wonderful job. They look amazing.
I love them.
Socks are a great project on the go, too.
Yeah.
Well, beautiful makers, that's it for this episode. I'm going to be heading home shortly, and I hope that you have just been able to relax and spend a little bit of you time with me. Take good care of yourselves. Have a good week, and I will see you next time.